a little bit about rewriting your commits to clean them up. There's several different reasons why you might want to do this. We'll get to that in a second. I thought I was really clever coming up with the rewriting history title, and then I looked at like the Git documentation page, and that's like the title that they use on that. So not quite as brilliant as I was thinking. My name is Laura Batson. I'm a director for Women Who Code Atlanta. I've attended this conference since the beginning, I think, but this is my first time speaking for a technical talk, and I hate public speaking, so y'all bear with me. You're my guinea pigs here to be my supportive audience to have this not be a terrible experience. But anyway, so I currently work as a senior software developer at Mural, and I'm actually using Mural for the presentation today. It's a pretty cool product, and it's something that I don't get to play with just for like the actual user side a lot. Usually I'm starting a voting session over and over and over and such, so I don't get to play with all the graphics and everything. So I had a lot of fun doing this presentation, and you kind of have to forgive me for the overexcitement I went on with like adding the pictures and the icons, and I used it as a way to be like, hey, I don't want to actually work right now, so let's just find the perfect meme. So if my design skills are terrible, just, I apologize. But all right. So why would you want to clean up your commits? Why would you want to rewrite the history? Biggest use case, I think, is going to be when you just wind up having a really, really large PR. And I have a little note over here that says, the best solution when your PRs are too long is to have smaller tickets. So really and truly, if you're finding yourself doing crazy, intense code review requests, if it's really looking long and ugly, talk to your team, talk to your manager, try and see if you can get the scope of work smaller. Sometimes that's not possible, right? Sometimes you just wind up realizing something is a much bigger rabbit hole than you were thinking originally, and it winds up being a really intense process. And this was something I had a lot at my current company, where I would wind up doing a really big PR and people would avoid doing code review on it because it was just too much all at once. And this is a way to kind of break it up into little chunks and to say, all right, here's where I added this button. Here's where I changed the styling to match this design. And to kind of, after you've done it, after you've experimented, after you've gone in and wiggled around in the code and figured out how things worked and actually got it running, to then go back and say, I did this perfectly from the beginning by this step and this step and this step, and just clean it all up. Another thing, I know I'm guilty of this, I put in a lot of nonsense commit messages. Maybe I'm trying to switch out of what I'm doing and just save real quick before I move on to something else, or I have to drop it and do code review, and I'll just put saved and commit, and it means nothing. And you want to get rid of those. You want to squash them together, just make it cleaner for other people to see. And sometimes you do that just because it's good, clean code practice. Sometimes you do that because maybe you work with like another developer that cannot stand when anything is not perfect, and you have to kind of accommodate that, and I see you smiling. Sometimes, you have that coworker that is really intense about these things, and I find that it's better to try and do the clean code practice than to fight with them about that stuff. Anyway, and please tell me, I know, man, I can't read that. Anyway, that's a funny comic that is just, so important right now. But please tell me if you can't see anything. So graphic user interface, GUI, GUI, however you want to say it, that is always a big question. And there's a lot of, I think, stigma against using graphic user interfaces. There's a lot of like, oh, you're not a real programmer if you're using the GUI. And I don't really like that attitude. I think that there's room for everybody, and sometimes people think differently and they need that visual component to see. Sometimes, yeah, sure, it's great to learn the old school way and to do it all from the command line. That's awesome. But I don't think that necessarily makes you a better developer. And I personally use both. I like having the command line. I like having full control over it. But then at the same time, there's visual pieces from having a graphic user interface that really make things easier to process and to do in the command line. So we're going to take a look at actual command line, and then we're also going to take a look at a couple of graphic user interfaces that exist that can make this process easier. I have found that with graphic user interfaces that I've used, and I use SourceTree a lot, and I love Git Kraken, but in order to use Git Kraken, and like, it's paid if you want to use it on private repositories. So I was able to use it and do stuff with it for, this talk with a little junk app I made, but I can't use it for work without paying, $100 or something, and I'm cheap, I didn't want to do that. I haven't tried the Git, I don't remember what it's called, but the actual Git user interface from GitHub. I haven't tried that one yet. Could be perfect. But there's definitely some weird bugs when you're using an actual GUI. There's not as much controls with the command line. All right, and next slide. All right, so first let's check out the command line. Let's try some stuff with that. I think that one of the first things that people struggle with when you're trying to do Git in the command line is you wind up using Vim. And that is not necessarily something everybody knows how to do. You could, there's entire classes on becoming an expert in Vim and becoming an expert in Git. But just to make things super quick for this, if you are in a Vim session and you just use that will start, that's the insert phase. That will allow you to start editing the messages and such. You can exit using escape. WQ is save and exit. Q is exit without saving anything. Q with the exclamation mark is probably what you want to use to exit and just get rid of stuff when you're like, oh, I don't want this, because Q by itself without the exclamation mark will complain and be like, but you didn't save your changes and update them. And yes, when you're using the semicolon or the colon, you are entering a command mode. Again, not sure if everybody knew that. I didn't know some of these, what they really meant before I looked it up and wrote it down for this. So it's helpful. I think I honestly found a lot of things with being able to edit in Vim by just smashing keys until I accidentally pressed I, and then I was like, why does it work now? So that is the fun part of Vim. Let's see here. Yeah, we'll go back here. So I made a really, really just dummy. I actually spent a lot of time setting up, making this Create React app, and then I was like, why am I doing this? It has nothing to do with what we're actually talking about, but it's still fun. So this is the application I have put in, and we're gonna do real simple stuff and just kind of focus on some content and CSS changes, and then try and take those changes at the end and split them and make it 2 commits. One for style, one for content, have them be split apart where even if you did a commit that combines both of those as a single commit, we're gonna break them apart. And if you did multiple commits, we're gonna squash it together so it's all in just these 2 commits. So I have, so on the right side is Git Kraken, and that's just up so y'all can see it maybe more easily visually. We'll take a look at how you can reorder things with that in a bit. And can everybody read it, or is it super tiny? Super tiny? All right, I'm gonna try and... Okay, apparently Git Kraken will not let me. Oh, maybe down here? No, that's as big as Git Kraken will go, so never mind. Can y'all at least read the command line? Ish, all right. All right, so we have the log here of the commits that I have done. And as you can see, I have put in just terrible messages that mean nothing. Stuff, more stuff, crazy stuff, style changes, content changes are down at the bottom. So when you are trying to do all of this, you start with git, start with actually clicking on the terminal, git rebase -I for interactive, and then you want to pick the commit that you are trying to go to. You can do it by, git commit head 3 or something. But for this purposes, I'm going to try and go back to here. 5, 6, 7. Okay. All right, so then up here at the top, we have all of the commits after that commit that I am trying to rebase onto. Up here, we have pick, and you can go in and you can say, all right, I want to edit. Sorry. Hi, Drew. You can also, from here, change the messages. You can say, I want to, split this here. But if you write in edit and leave it as is, let's see here, and I can say that I want to squash all these commits. And all the commands are like down here underneath. Obviously, it writes it all out, but sometimes it's hard to just kind of process and see what you're actually trying to use. Fix up is a nice little command that will allow you to just say, this was the whole commit, and then I'm just adding this one little addition, and it will auto squash it later on in the commit process. But when you're up here, you're probably going to use edit. If you're wanting to change the message, change something in it, you can also use squash, and that's going to say, all right, just kind of put all these together. Oh, and is it going to complain at me? Have I done something wrong? All right, so I just did, I saved in Vim and did WQ, so that saved everything, exited Vim. And now this gives you the little list of like what you're supposed to do next. You can say git rebase continue and say I'm done, just keep going with it. But if I say git commit amend, then it opens up to just that one commit, and I can edit again the message. You could do it from the first one, but maybe you only want to change the message at a certain point and you're not wanting to go through all of the files and mess it up. But let's say that this is going to be content changes. And again, it's I'm exiting, changes. I have to escape. And that has rewritten it, redone it, and so then I say git rebase continue. And it does all of that. Ooh, and I don't want that commit message, but all right, successfully rebased and all of that. So if y'all can see over here on the right-hand side, we had several commits before, all of them saying nonsense. Now we have just these 3 commits. Now this one actually, so if I look here, that only, y'all probably cannot read this, but this is a CSS file change, right? So style changes, that commit message makes sense for style changes. Here is content changes with app.js, but this one up here actually has both style and content changes in it. And so I actually want to take that one and take it back, uncommit it, and rename it, split it into 2 separate commits. So what I want to do is git log so that I can get, let's see here, the last commit before this one. I want to go back here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm trying to go back to the style changes commit. I want to revert my commit after that one, start from there from scratch. So git reset. And it has now unstaged the files. So then I can do 2 separate commits. I can say, all right, git add the CSS file and git commit style changes. It helps if I can actually write them. And then git status. The app.js file has not been committed. I can say this time, because I usually do this. I don't know if y'all are guilty of always doing just git add all when you're doing commits. I do that all the time. And then, yes, when you have to go back and revert it, the reset is very helpful. But you can do it when it's the last file left, right? And save this as content. I'm anxious typing, or not typing. Yeah, there we go. All right. Git log. All right, so now we can see that all of the commits are either content or style changes. And I'm going to go ahead and switch to the UI for merging these together, because this is where I'm like, I don't really want to do the command line. You can, it's absolutely possible, but I definitely appreciate using a graphic user interface at this point, because all I got to do is pick it right here and say, all right, you're going to go down here. Or no, apparently you're not going to. And I want to, why is it not doing it? Okay. In theory, I should be able to pull this and squash it, but it is not happy. Something is not working. Oh, it wants me to restart Git Kraken. I don't want to do that. All right. Well, let's look at source tree then. But here we have, content changes, style changes, content changes, and I want to combine these. So with source tree, I like it. It's free. It's pretty easy to use most of the time. One thing that I have noticed is if I want to do a Git interactive rebase, it brings up this nice little modal that has all of the commits blocked out except for the one that is highlighted. I don't know why. If anybody knows what setting I have put in to do that, please tell me. But I find it very annoying. So I can say, all right, I want to squash with previous. And this is part of the problem, is because I can't see what I'm doing, it gets a little blinding. You have to kind of do it and go back and forth. And yeah, see, if I click it. All right, so if I've squashed those two, excuse me, both style changes are there, and I can say, all right, rebase interactively, and I want to move it down. What? Did I click on the wrong one? That's why. Sorry. All right, I want to reorder it. Yeah, there we go. Style changes, content changes, and then squash with selecting it. All right. And it did something very strange. Okay, content changes. Where's the style changes? Here, okay. Somehow I have messed something up and broken my head free. I don't know why. But in theory, we're supposed to be having this as one commit of content changes, one commit of style changes. And if you are, again, doing something for people that maybe need a breakdown of your thought process, you can say, all right, here's where I'm gonna, work on this logic piece. Here's where I connect it to the API. And you can just go back and reorder everything into a way that works for you, that's gonna be clear and easy for them to review. Let's see here, and some very quick ones that I have learned to use more recently. So if you want to do, you're going to squash something. You're doing like, oh crud, I did a spelling error in that last commit, and I need to go back and change it. You can just do git commit fix up and, head one, and it will automatically just add it as an addendum to that. If you're using Git Commit Amend, you can change the message of your last commit. And if you put in you can also add to that commit. You can say, all right, I'm going to change this file here, and then when you do Git Commit Amend, it will save it to that previous commit. And if you say no edit, then you can skip editing the commit message and you can skip Vim, because I know not everybody loves Vim. I don't really love Vim. But yes, so we took a little look at source tree. Again, I've used that since I became a developer. It's just very easy to see where your commits are visually. And I know I'm comfortable with it because I've used it forever. The interactive rebase modal is terrible, so I can't say that it's great for that. But again, I like using both in tandem. Git Kraken. That was something a coworker introduced me to, and I do really like it, but it is not actually free. You have to, pay them if you're going to use it in real life. And let's see here, an external, it's complaining about that. Maybe that's why it doesn't like source tree at the same time. Try quitting source tree. So if I can get this to function. Let me try one more time here. Because Git Kraken is the easiest way that I found to do some of that interactive rebasing, because you can just drop and drag. You can pick the commit and say, I want it to go down here. Then you can click squash with previous. I don't care about the release notes. Is performing, did I not finish the rebase? That might be why. All right, sorry, again, my first time speaking at a tech conference. I hate public speaking, y'all, so be patient with me. I forgot that we needed to do this part because that actually closes out the rebasing. It's kind of important. All right, so now it has updated, and maybe that is why. All right, so let's see here. Now I can say, all right, I want to do interactive rebase of all children here. Or you know what, I'm going to do it on this one that has a bunch of other garbage. So I just go here and I say, all right, I want to do an interactive rebase. And it pulls this up and I can say, all right, I'm going to, because I'm on that branch. All right, I want to squash. You know what, and I want style changes to come before content changes. Very simple and easy to just pull and use the graphic user interface. Start rebase. It will bring up your conflicts and complain about them, and then you can pick which one you want to do and have the checkbox. So that is now in Visual Studio Code, I've noticed as well. Save, unresolved, whatever, B. Continue. I don't know why it's complaining so much. All right, because I had to. All right, and then that was this one. So anyway, I found this to be the easiest to use just for visual stuff. One thing it does not allow you to do is you can't, from here, say I want to reset back to 4 commits back, resave everything like you can on the command line. In order to unstage a commit and to actually pull it back to that you have to use the command line. But, oh yeah, this is another version of the app. And so I know that I didn't go as fast as I could have. I knew I was going to go kind of fast, but thank you very much for listening. Does anybody have questions? If not, I'm going to play the honest trailer of Back to the Future, because that was my backup for filling some time if I went through the thing in 10 minutes and was like, peace. But yeah, so any questions, any concerns, comments? Yes, Drew.
Put exclamation points in your Git commit messages. I find that when I use exclamation points, it unsets a quote, and so like I usually get really angry at my commits, and why is this not working? Exclamation point. And it won't let me go without that because it says unquoted text. You know anything about that?
I do not. I don't know that I've ever put exclamation points in a commit. I've put lots of.
I get really upset when it doesn't.
I've put lots of commit messages that are like, this is stupid. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm angry at this code. Yeah, no, I definitely. But again, you want to clean those up, right? You don't want your manager to see that you wrote like, I hate my job right now. So that's when you can edit these things. And again, I have a coworker right now that, Lord bless her, she is really, really into just everything being very clean and precise and perfect. And so we can't leave commit messages in that, are nonsense. And I'm like, but why? No, it's we can squash it and we can all move on. No, okay, we'll redo it. So having that tool is very helpful. Again, I find it the most useful when it's something that is a big project that, I know I've entered into things and had it like expand over time and be like, oh my gosh, this is so much more work than I was ever expecting, and I had to rewrite it 6 times. And being able to kind of put that into context and break that up and to skip those parts where you did it all wrong the first time and just leave that out of history. Just rewrite it and wash it clean and pretend it never happened is nice. But yes.
Can you go back to the source tree one?
Yes. Can I? Where did it go? Oh, I quit it so it wouldn't complain, but yes.
So I noticed that it looks like it's a generated message, or can you change that? Like how it has like style changes, this one squash, or is that always gonna be there?
Because I squashed them in, that's more in the comment section. So on the actual, like if you push to GitHub and you're looking at that repo history, you would only see this message, but then, within the comments on it, there would be that further information because it's just letting you know that this was a squash commit of these other pieces. So if you want to revert that squash, break it down further, but it's it won't look like that when you push it and are actually trying to look at it on the repo. Yes.
So can you do git reset? I think the example that when you were in the command line, you were typing git reset, it was like the most recent commit. Can you also do that for an earlier one or not really?
Absolutely, and one thing that can be confusing is depending on where you're looking. So this, let's see here, is actually in reverse order. So I went and I copied, I think, from here. And this is actually the oldest commit. If you look down here, you can see Wednesday, September 14th. And then if I go up here, Thursday, September 15th. So this is actually ordering them from newest to oldest. And I'm trying to think of where that is backwards. Maybe on source, no, I don't know. Somewhere else that does the exact opposite. Maybe in Vim. I think in Vim, maybe it does the reverse order when you're listing them out. But so yeah, that is absolutely the whole point, is to be able to go back as far as you want. There is git reset head, and then you can put in the number so that you don't even have to know the commit hash. You can just be like, I want to go back 2, and that will go back. So Unstage now. But yeah, so that is a very useful tool. Again, that's, as far as I know, the only way to kind of break up your commits and say, all right, I committed everything in one go, but I actually want to do it as 4 separate things. I don't need to do anything.
You can also get reset to a branch name as well.
I really enjoy. So, y'all, has everybody used the Create React app? I really love that they have that little, animation already put in there, and I enjoy finding other things to replace the logo with. This is my favorite so far. It's a lot of fun. Anyway. And I kept changing it and then coming back to it and being like, I really like the Putin head spinning. It just makes me really happy.
I came in a little late. I think I'm new to the game of Visual Studio Code and GitHub. I just discovered that you can do your pull requests directly in Visual Studio Code. Did you know that?
You can do it.
Super exciting.
So here's the thing that I've noticed about all these different technologies is you now have the ability to do everything in any of them. And then I still wind up going to what I'm most comfortable with, because trying to learn how to do it from within and with here, I'm like, no, it's just easier to just do this here and do that. And it probably wouldn't be probably right if I like took the extra time to really learn the GitHub and to be like, everything can be done within this one interface. It might be better, and Visual Studio Code certainly has that capability. But then it's like the minute something is wrong with that one, the minute they release a terrible version or whatever, you're like, oh, nothing works now. Yes?
There seems to be a JIRA discussion about source tree having a dark mode that'll make your problem go away with the modal. So, no, it says like appearances, preferences, dark mode.
No, I have turned, it may be that because, no, I appreciate it. I've wondered about it because I had originally turned it to dark mode. It's in light mode now because I tried switching it back to see if that would make it fix. So maybe it's that if I had never tried dark mode in the first place. But, it's just, again, there's always limitations on any tool, especially when it's a graphic user interface over the command line. There's always, and, there will always be that, well, why are you using this, when you should really learn to use the command line for everything? You should never touch your mouse. And again, that's a matter of opinion. And I personally don't understand why anybody looks for more things to criticize and to make people feel bad about. I like being able to look at this and be like, what happened? As opposed to all of this stuff here. Because the numbers are very distracting, right? You're like, what is that? How do I find the commit hash? And this is just so pretty and colorful.
Yeah, I have said I go command line in between. But sometimes for me switching between branch, I don't remember the whole name of the branch. It's just click on VS Code. You click on the branch and show you everything, and then just click on it and switch. Instead of just what's the name? Sometimes I go hyphen. Sometimes they're the same name. Maybe just remove this code or process code or something like that.
And I know you can do a lot of this stuff too within Git Kraken, right? I've been playing around with it a lot more for this presentation, and you can, stage and unstage, you can branch, you can do it, but from within there. But again, it just depends on what you're comfortable with, what works best for you. And yeah, I enjoyed when I was working and I had a coworker that he had actually gone to college for computer science and all of this, and he was like, what are you doing? When I committed something from the command line, he didn't know that you could do that. He's like, I've always used source tree. I was like, okay, now I feel awesome. But that was a little petty in my part. Anyway, but yes, so thank y'all very much. Any other questions? Who's ready for happy hour? I know I am. Yeah. All right. Well, then again, unless anybody really would like to watch the honest trailer for that movie, and Bill and Ted's, yes, Bill and Ted's, Back to the Future, and Wrinkle in Time. I haven't ever seen Wrinkle in Time, actually, but unless you really want to watch all of those, you're more than welcome to go downstairs and start drinking, as I will be there soon. Thank you very much.